I'm a 19-year-old female and I live with my parents and my two brothers. We recently had a get-together at my home for some of my dad's friends. My dad was out the entire day and my mom was cooking and preparing for the party. My dad came home when the guests had already arrived. My mom told my dad that she is not talking to him and continued blabbering about why he was late. She said all this with a rudish tone. My dad lost his composure after my mom's few sentences and threw his cell phone, his slippers, not in my mom's direction, but overall he began acting like a madman. The guests were in the seating area and I guess they heard it. My mom became very sad and my dad remained silent the entire dinner. At night, my mom came to me and said she will not say sorry and she is extremely hurt and never expected such a harsh reaction. My brother, who is also 19, and I went to talk to my dad about why he acted in such a way. He started acting out and saying my mom should have watched her tone, and that's not the way a woman should talk to her husband. At this point, I lost my composure and said some hurtful things. I told him that his reaction was too much, and throwing things is not a normal response to a few sentences. He said it's not his fault they had no fights in their 20 years of marriage, to which I said it's because of my mom that he is not a good husband and she is a good wife, which I still think is true. My mom never fights with my dad, but whenever she says anything harsh, my dad reacts very badly. To this statement, he seemed very hurt, and now my brother thinks I messed up by saying this. But someone needed to tell him. P.S. He is an amazing man and an amazing father. But I think when it comes to mom, he is only nice as long as she does what he wants. Edit. As for the no fights part, they had no fights for the last 19 years. As for last year, they are both getting old and are not very patient with each other. My dad and mom are always nice and sweet to each other. To be honest, my mom never starts any arguments. But in the period of 8 months, my mom and dad had 3 big fights. All the fights started in the same manner. My mom said some stuff in a harsh and annoyed tone, and my dad lost his composure. He earns enough money, and in one fight he said, "I am rich, I can marry any young girl if you ever misbehave with me." My mom didn't talk to him for 2 days and then surrendered. This time, it started exactly like this and ended up with him throwing things. Mind you, in between these 2 fights, my mom never even complained, so the relationship was smooth sailing. This time, my brother and I went to talk to our dad because we didn't want our mother to surrender without an apology. Edit 2. In the end of the talk, my dad kind of gave in and said he is only doing it for my brother. The reason for this is maybe because I said he was in the wrong, and my brother kind of coaxed him like a toddler, saying stuff like, "You're not wrong, but you should still make peace." He came to the room where my mom was and sat there in silence and left after about 2 minutes. We convinced our mom to go back to her room. It wasn't really hard to convince her. Now I am expected to apologize to my dad, but I think if I apologize this time, he would think he did nothing wrong, giving him more confidence that he is always right. I still don't understand why, being 19, I have the power to voice my opinion without any reaction. But my mom can't even nag a little. Final edit. The next morning, I came home super early from high school and my dad had not left for work. I kind of ignored greeting my parents as they were in their room and went straight to my room on another floor. I was hoping not to have any conversation with him because I don't want to be confronted. I was lying in my bed when I heard a knock. It was my dad. He came in acting all sweet, hugging me and saying he loved me the most in the world, which is something he says very often. My mom and dad also seemed to get along like normal, so I let go of what happened. This is the 3rd time they had a fight, mind you. They have only ever had 3 fights, and it again ended in a single night, but I am happy I kind of voiced my opinion this time and let him know that no matter how long or without fights their marriage is, it doesn't give him the right to be disrespectful. Also, some people were saying both of these outbreaks were due to some kind of mental pressure. I think stress was the issue this time. It had less to do with mom's snarky comments and more to do with my dad's own mental health. And no, my dad is not hurtful. My mom never felt unsafe with him. I kind of asked her if she was scared at that moment, but she was not. She knew my dad would do nothing to her, but she did feel that his behavior was not normal. Also, the younger wife comment I think was also made in the heat of the moment. He ended up crying at that moment, immediately after saying that. I think he was emotionally manipulating my mom at that time to give in to his every demand. This time, by telling him off, I think he knows that no matter how little, this won't work. My mom may be forgiving, but I am not. Whatever the culture says, I don't care. I will stand my ground. Thank you all. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot. Sometimes our parents need a reality check, and no one else in their life will give it to them. It was a harsh truth, but you would likely feel more guilty for not defending your mother against his unjust actions. You said he is an amazing father and man, you should mention this the next time you speak to him. But sometimes people start to take each other for granted after many years of marriage. We all make mistakes. Ask to talk to him, apologize for your harshness, but reinforce the fact that you were defending your mother and that he raised you to speak up when something isn't right. Comment 2, not the idiot. This was in reply to an edit comment you added about them having 3 big fights in the last few months. One thing I have observed in couples who never fight is that one person usually puts their wants, feelings, and sometimes needs aside. Some of the strongest couples I have ever witnessed still have fights. When the person finally has enough, it often comes as a shock to their partner and to onlookers. I am not saying this is the case in your parents' relationship, but there may be a lot of emotion going on that isn't visible to others. Now, for the update, thank you for sticking around. So where do I even start? The past 2 weeks have been pretty tough and not the fun kind. Remember how I told you about my dad's outburst? Well, things escalated quickly after that. My mom, who's usually the peacekeeper, had enough. She found an old bank statement that showed a large withdrawal my dad made a year ago, one she knew nothing about. She confronted him, and guess what? He had lent a huge sum to his friend without telling any of us. My mom was livid, not just about the money but the secrecy. The argument that followed was unlike any other. My dad, usually so composed, broke down and admitted that his friend had never paid him back and that he was ashamed to tell us. He felt like he had failed us as a provider. My mom, on the other hand, felt betrayed that he didn't trust her enough to share the burden. It was a mess. But here's the thing. My dad's friend suddenly showed up at our house, out of the blue, with a check. He had come into some money and wanted to settle his debt. It was a tense moment watching my dad accept that check. You could cut the tension with a knife. Just when we thought things were settling down, my brother, the one who's always been the mediator, did something unexpected. He took the check and tore it up right in front of everyone. He said that our family's trust wasn't something to be bought and sold. My dad's friend was shocked. My dad was speechless. And my mom, she actually smiled. It was like my brother had made a statement on behalf of all of us, that our family was about more than money. In the aftermath, my dad's friend left, and we had a long, hard talk about trust and honesty. My dad apologized to my mom, and they decided to work on their communication. It wasn't easy, but it felt like we were finally getting somewhere. But life loves throwing curveballs, doesn't it? Just as we were finding our footing, my mom's sister, who had always been the envious type, decided to stir the pot. She called my mom and spun a tale about seeing my dad with another woman. My mom was heartbroken, and I was furious. How could my aunt do something so cruel? I took it upon myself to investigate. I followed my dad, talked to people, and what do you know? He was meeting with a real estate agent, a woman, yes, but they were looking at spaces for my mom's dream of opening a small bakery, a surprise he had been planning for their anniversary. When I told my mom, she was overwhelmed with guilt and relief. She confronted her sister, who eventually admitted that she was just jealous of my mom's life and wanted to cause trouble. It was a low blow, and it caused a rift in the family that I'm not sure will ever heal. My mom and dad are now working on the bakery together, and it's like they've found a new purpose. They're happier, more in tune with each other, and it's like we've all been given a second chance at being a family. As for me, I'm just trying to keep up with the chaos. I haven't apologized to my dad, and I don't plan to. I still believe I was right to stand up for my mom. But I've learned that sometimes the truth has a way of coming out, even when you least expect it. Thank you for reading. My best friend stiffs me on New Year's Airbnb bill, so I expose her cheating ways and make her pay up double. I, 38-year-old female, third-wheeled with my best friend, 39-year-old female, and her new boyfriend, 40-year-old male, to ring in 2024. We booked an Airbnb, and I put the entire amount on my card since I'm the only one with an Airbnb account. This was the first time I met him too, so I know very little about him and have barely interacted with him. Edit. Let's call them Andy and Anna. Afterwards, she paid her third somewhat quickly. I did have to prompt after 2 weeks. She said she's going to get her boyfriend's share, then forward that to me. I said fine, but I honestly felt like the right thing would have been for her to just give me both their portions, then get payment from him. That's what I would have done, and my own boyfriend, who didn't join us, agrees. I found out later that he got upset with her because he's frugal, and she made it sound like it was going to be a lot cheaper. She chose the place, then told me which one to book. Anyway, they had a fight, then she said she's going to wait for things to cool down before broaching the subject of payment again. Once again, I'm annoyed, because I felt like it should have been her responsibility to cover for him ASAP, instead of putting me in this weird position where I have to wait for him to pay her, then her to pay me. It's like playing telephone with money, and I'm just hanging in limbo. They've been fighting a lot, so I think the payment topic got quickly left in the dust. It's been 2 months, and they've both forgotten about it. I reached out to her on Sunday early March, and she was shocked to realize that it still hasn't been paid. I believe her surprised because she can be forgetful. I don't think she's intentionally ducking me. She said she'll talk to him this week, and I thanked her. But honestly, I'm pissed because, 1, I think his share of the payment should have been her responsibility to me. I feel like at our age, this etiquette should be a given. She doesn't seem to realize I'm an outsider being put in an awkward position. Instead, her point of view seems to be that we're 3 individuals with equal social distance from each other. So once she paid her own share, she forgot about how much he owed me. This would have been understandable if I was also friends with her boyfriend, but I'm not. 2, it's been 2 months. When I owe people money, I set a reminder and pay ASAP. If I can't pay immediately, I take it on myself to reach out weekly to say I haven't forgotten. In this case, I had to chase her down. So it feels like she put the onus of remembering on me when it should have been hers to carry. Also, I think she should have just paid both their shares back in January. There's some things that I am trying to be understanding of. Work is really toxic to her, and she's been having health issues with an upcoming surgery in April. Not major, but still scary. She's also been fighting with the boyfriend. I'm trying to give her grace, but I also think this is not cool. Would I be the idiot if I ask her to just pay me from her own money, then figure it out with him on her own time? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. This is honestly why I never front anyone. I'm happy booking on my card, but it's cash up front to me. I think you're correct about the solution, but you may have to consider it gone. Their relationship is not your problem, so don't bother tiptoeing with her. Tell her to pay up. Where she gets it from is not your problem. If she refuses because she doesn't want to be the bad guy in their relationship, me personally, I'd tell her to give me his number and go after him. Put some social pressure on him, whatever. And if both relationships go up in flames over reneging over the deal, so be it. Not the idiot. Comment 2. Wait, this is about a new boyfriend and plans for December 31st, 2024? Of course your friend, who has asked you to book this Airbnb specifically, and who agreed that you are responsible for a third, should pay for the other 2 shares. I mean, who knows if they won't even be together anymore by then? And that shouldn't mean that you'll have to pay more. She ordered 2/3 of this place, and now she will have to pay for it. Not the idiot. Edit, could be a language thing. Is NY 2024 and 2023, and therefore you've had the weekend already? Still not the idiot. Now for the update, thanks for sticking around for this update. A lot has happened since the last post. So the whole money thing with Anna and her boyfriend Andy blew up in a way I never expected. Last week I found out that Anna and Andy had split up. It was messy and she was a wreck. She came over to my place crying and told me that Andy had been cheating on her with his ex. I was furious for her, but also, in the back of my mind, I was thinking about the money he still owed me. In the middle of her tears, Anna confessed that she had known about the cheating for a while but didn't want to believe it. She'd been covering for Andy's share of the Airbnb because she was afraid of confronting him about the money and the other woman. I was shocked. I felt betrayed that she hadn't told me sooner, and now I was caught in the middle of their breakup drama. I tried to be supportive, but I couldn't help but feel resentful. I was out a chunk of money because of their relationship issues. I told her she needed to pay me back, and she promised she would, but she didn't know when she could. Her job was on the line, and with the surgery coming up, she was strapped for cash. Then 2 days ago, things took an even wilder turn. Andy showed up at my door out of the blue with an envelope full of cash. He said it was for the Airbnb, and he was sorry for the trouble. But then he dropped a bomb. He claimed that Anna had been the one cheating, not him, and he had proof. He showed me messages between Anna and some guy from her work. I didn't know what to believe. Andy looked sincere, and Anna had lied before. I was torn. On one hand, I had the money, which was a relief. On the other, my best friend might have been lying to me about something so big. I felt like I was in a soap opera, and I hated it. I confronted Anna about the messages. She broke down, admitting that she had been seeing this guy from work, but it was only after she found out about Andy's infidelity. She said she was lost and made a mistake. I was angry, hurt, and felt like a fool for being caught in their web of lies. But then I did something I never thought I'd do. I forgave her. Maybe it was because I saw how broken she was, or maybe because I was tired of the drama. I felt weak and desperate, like I was clinging to the remains of our friendship. I told her we'd figure it out, and she didn't have to rush with the money. Now I'm sitting here with this envelope from Andy, feeling like the world's biggest pushover. I'm out of the loop and I hate it. But I guess in some twisted way, things have a way of working themselves out, even if it's not how you expect. Thanks for reading. My parents always played favorites with my youngest brother. But when he conned our grandma and stole her house, I made sure he faced the full force of the law and watched him get sentenced to 8 years behind bars. Growing up, my parents favored my youngest brother, M, leaving my sister S, older brother J, and me on the sidelines. Complications during my mom's last pregnancy made M the golden child. Despite my high-functioning autism, I excelled academically, skipping several years ahead of school and even helping my older brother Jay with his studies. However, my parents forced me to also tutor M, and of course I would be punished if he had bad grades. During our childhood, the only one who treated us fairly was Grandma. She lived close by, so she used to babysit all of us all the time. She was especially proud of me because of how much I helped my brothers, and I became her favorite. Eventually, we stayed at her house permanently while going to college. Only M stayed at our parents' house because they would spoil him rotten. Fast forward many years, Jay is now 35 years old, S is 29 years old, and I am 31 years old. We have distanced ourselves from our parents, building successful lives. Jay is now a professional chef, I am a linguistics teacher, and I became a network engineer. I make almost 4 times what Jay and S make, so I have financially supported my daughter and set up college funds for her, my nieces and nephews because S and J are my best friends, and they have helped me immensely. I am a single dad, and even though I own several properties, I still live at Grandma's house because she is in her late 80s now and needs all the help she can get. Years later, when he turned 26 years old, my parents got sick of supporting M and kicked him out. So M showed up at our grandma's house about 6 months ago, apologizing for all he did to me while growing up, and swore that if I helped him get a job, he would change his ways and would even help take care of Grandma, which admittedly he did. Cautiously, I let him in and gave him a chance. But sadly, he was just pretending to get me to lower my guard. About a month ago, my daughter and I went for a week of vacation to camp in the mountains. During this time, my brother had forced Grandma to sign a document to transfer ownership of her house to him, and then he kicked her out of her own home. However, he didn't know that Grandma had already legally transferred the property of her house to me since she had planned to leave it to me in her will anyway. We contacted the police and explained what happened with the documents proving I now own the house and that the papers M had were not valid because Grandma was no longer the house owner when she signed them, revealing his fraudulent actions. He is now facing charges of fraud, falsified documents, and elder abuse and could get 10 years of prison. Now my parents have been calling me nonstop, pleading for mercy for their precious little boy and asking me to drop the charges. So I grapple with the decision to let him face legal consequences. Am I justified or am I going too far? Am I the idiot? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot. In the space of a week, he stole what he thought was our grandmother's home. Presumably you returned to find her. Where? And what did he do with everyone's possessions? This man fully intended to leave the 3 of you homeless with no recourse. If it hadn't been for the fact that you'd already taken legal possession of the home, he might have gotten away with it. No, he needs to experience the full impact of everything he was willing to dish out and more. Comment 2. Not the idiot. Your parents have enabled him his whole life. If you drop the charges, you are also enabling him. What he did was heinous. To his own grandmother? What the vile human. Also, it's quite possible that you can't drop the charges, or that if you say you want to, the prosecutor will still prosecute because it's a heinous crime and elder abuse. Now, for the update, thanks for keeping up with my story. So things have been pretty tense since I last wrote. Remember how I said my brother M had been kicked out by our parents? Well, he's been staying with us at Grandma's, and I thought he was turning over a new leaf. He even started helping out with Grandma, which was a huge relief. But boy, was I wrong. Just 2 weeks ago, M pulled a stunt that could have ruined everything. He convinced Grandma to sign some papers. He said they were for insurance, but they were actually to transfer the house to his name. I couldn't believe it. Grandma was so upset she could barely speak. I was furious, but I had to keep it together for her sake. Now, let me tell you about Grandma's house. It's not just any house, it's where we all grew up. It's full of memories. Grandma had always said she wanted me to have it because I was the one who stuck by her. So a few years back, she made it official and transferred the deed to my name. M didn't know about this, and that was his big mistake. When I found out what M had done, I was torn. Part of me wanted to protect him because he's family, but the other part of me was just so angry. I couldn't let him get away with it. So I called the cops and they started an investigation. Turns out, M could be facing some serious time behind bars for fraud and elder abuse. Meanwhile, S and J were shocked. They couldn't believe M would stoop so low. We all knew he had his issues, but this was something else. S was especially hurt because she had started to trust him again. And J, well, he was just disappointed. He had always hoped M would grow up one day. As for me, I've been trying to juggle work, taking care of grandma, and dealing with this whole mess. It's been tough. My students have noticed I'm not quite there, and I've had to take some personal days just to manage everything. It's like I'm living in a bad dream and I just want to wake up. But here's where it gets even messier. Our parents have been bombarding me with calls and messages, begging me to drop the charges against M. They're worried about what will happen to him if he goes to jail. I get it, he's their son. But what about grandma? What about the rest of us? I've been losing sleep over this. I keep thinking about what's right and what's fair. It's not just about M anymore, it's about all of us. If I let him off the hook, what message does that send? That he can just walk all over us and get away with it? No, I can't have that. So after a lot of thought, I decided to go through with the charges. It was one of the hardest decisions I've ever made. I felt like I was betraying my own brother. But at the same time, I had to stand up for what's right. The court date was set, and M looked like he had the weight of the world on his shoulders. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. But then I remembered what he did to grandma, and I knew I was doing the right thing. The trial was intense. M tried to play the victim, saying he was just confused and didn't mean any harm. But the evidence was against him. The judge didn't buy his story, and neither did the jury. In the end, M was found guilty on all counts. He was sentenced to 8 years in prison. It was a bittersweet victory. Our family was torn apart even more, and grandma was heartbroken to see her grandson being taken away in handcuffs. But at least we knew that justice was served. Now we're all trying to move on. S and J have been my rock through all of this, and I don't know what I'd do without them. We're taking care of grandma together, making sure she feels loved and safe in her own home. As for me, I'm just trying to get back to normal, whatever that is. I'm focusing on my daughter and my students, trying to be the best dad and teacher I can be. It's not easy, but I'm getting there one day at a time. Thanks for reading. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.